Zootopia 2 brought just as much action as the original movie, or maybe even more, because Nick and Judy's new adventure is way more dangerous. Do you have any idea how incredible the action scenes in Disney's new animated film really are? Nick versus Pawbert. One of the most emotional fights is definitely the one that happens at the end of the movie, right after we discover the truth about a character we thought was a good guy. At that point, we already knew the members of the Lee family were the main villains of the story, but we believed Pawbert was the exception, someone who didn't agree with his family gaining power through lies and who, because of that, chose to help Gary expose the truth about the Lynx. But in the end, Pawbert turned out to be a traitor who was just manipulating everyone. That's why watching Nick fight him was so terrifying. We could finally see how Pawbert is truly someone capable of doing anything to achieve his goals. And when the floor started breaking and both of them were about to fall, we were reminded of how manipulative Pawbert is, since he suddenly switched back to acting harmless so Nick would stop fighting, even though just a few seconds earlier, Pawbert was fully ready to take the fox's life. This is only the first of the 10 fights you need to see in Zootopia. Are you ready? Because another amazing Cinewave is starting now. 2. Nick and Judy versus Pawbert. Fortunately, that fight between Nick and Pawbert isn't the only one they have. In fact, Pawbert ends up facing the main characters again shortly after. And when we say main characters, we're not just talking about Nick. Judy is right there too. This time, the duo has the upper hand, especially because the battle starts with a chase as they go after the villain using a vehicle. At first, it's much more of a terrifying pursuit for Pawbert than anything else. And let's be honest, it was incredible seeing the traitor on the losing side for once. But things turn into an actual fight when the two jump out of the car. Even then, they still gave Pawbert such a brutal beating that we almost felt a little sorry for him. Well, at least until he managed to strike back and knock both of them down, which was honestly impressive. But unfortunately for the Lynx, Nick and Judy were not alone. Gary versus Pawbert. Yep, Gary ended up joining this fight too, and he showed up with a surprise attack that shocked both the villain and us. Everyone knows that in animated films, surprise attacks can easily turn the tide of a battle, and that's exactly what happened here. Gary may be funny, but at the end of the day, he's still a snake. He managed to coil himself around Pawbert to immobilize him, and just to be sure, hit him in the head with a wooden club crafted from Nibble's teeth. Yes, in a way, she also helped take Bert down. That was definitely not what we expected from her when we first saw her. Mayor Winddancer versus the Lynxleys. Another character who seemed like nothing but a joke was Mayor Winddancer, and, well, he is a joke for most of the movie, acting as a complete puppet for the Lee family to control the city from the shadows. But the important thing is that, in the end, he finally does the right thing when he confronts the members of the Lee family. And this is when his past as an action movie actor becomes relevant, because he ends up beating everybody up with ridiculous ease. It's hilarious, especially because the movie even makes the scene dramatic and adds slow motion, just like classic action films. It makes total sense since Mayor Winddancer is clearly a reference to those huge action stars, especially Arnold Schwarzenegger, who not only made tons of iconic action movies, but also became the governor of California. Zootopia is far from the first movie to reference him when creating a famous actor turned politician type of character. And if you're also the kind of person who loves an exciting or funny fight scene, comment down below #fight. Gazelle versus Zebra Officers. Another character heavily inspired by a real-world celebrity is Gazelle, who is basically the animal version of Shakira. It's no surprise the singer voices the character. She was already in the first movie, but this time, her appearance went to a whole new level, because in Zootopia 2, Gazelle actually fights. Her fight is against the zebra officers who were chasing the main characters. Gazelle agreed to attack them so Judy could continue her mission without being interrupted. And trust us, those zebras did not stand a chance fighting Gazelle and her dancing tigers. It was really cool seeing this character return in Zootopia 2. She could have easily not come back since she was originally only a special cameo, but having her return was way more fun, especially because the singer genuinely helped Judy. Will Gazelle show up again in a possible Zootopia 3? Or will Shakira let another famous artist take over with a special appearance of their own? Car chase. Time to go back to the beginning of the movie because Zootopia 2 has action from the very start. Nick and Judy had been assigned to accompany a pair of more experienced officers to observe them in action. After all, the two are still rookies and need more field experience, even though they solved an entire conspiracy in the first film. But of course, Nick and Judy thought they could handle that small case on their own, especially after everything they had already accomplished. Instead of following protocol, they went after the suspect by themselves, using disguises to get close to the criminal they needed to investigate. And it was working, at least until Bogo spoke through Judy's communicator, which made the criminal realize the two were undercover officers. And that's when the battle truly begins, this time as a full-on, extremely dangerous car chase. But things get bad for Nick and Judy fast, because the chase ends with the two causing a car to fall right on top of Mayor Winddancer's statue. That disaster puts Nick and Judy at risk of being separated at work. If we think about it, this whole situation is really similar to the beginning of Incredibles 2, where the main characters also fail while trying to stop a villain and end up causing more destruction than anything else, ruining the reputation they had gained in the previous film. Maybe one sequel drew a bit of inspiration from the other, who knows? Now let's see if the third movies of these two amazing franchises will also share similarities, since Incredibles 3 is already in production and Zootopia 3 will almost certainly be announced at some point. Swamp chase. When Nick and Judy are in the swamp, we get another chase scene, just without cars. At this point in the movie, they had already gone from officers to fugitives, since they were blamed for Gary's escape. As both of them began investigating the conspiracy involving the snake in the Lee's book on their own, they ended up in a swampy area of the city, where a reptile hideout exists. The Razorbacks, an elite police team, managed to track them down, which led to the scene where they had to run for their lives to avoid getting arrested. At the same time they were fleeing, Nick and Judy were also chasing Gary, because they needed him to understand what the whole mystery was really about. Judy vs. Captain Hogbottom. This chase continued until Judy and Nick entered an abandoned house where she was still far from safe, since Captain Hogbottom also went inside along with her officers. Captain Hogbottom is the leader of the Razorbacks, and something interesting is that she was originally supposed to appear in the first movie, but the character ended up being removed from the final version, after the script went through a complete rewrite. Anyway, the battle was so wild that the entire house ended up being destroyed. Actually, not just destroyed, the whole place started collapsing. Even then, one of the officers still kept chasing Judy. The rabbit only managed to escape because Pawbert, who at this point was still pretending to be a nice guy, showed up and knocked Hogbottom out with a surprise attack. Pawbert and Gary also stopped Judy from falling with the rest of the collapsing house, and the three of them left together after that. Unfortunately, Nick wasn't so lucky, since he ended up getting arrested by the officers. Subscribing to the channel is just as good as watching your favorite animations. Shall we click? Gary stealing the book. Before that whole breathtaking scene happened, we also had the moment that introduced Gary, the moment he broke into the gala hosted by the Linksley family to steal the book, making Judy and Nick start chasing him. In Nick's case, the poor guy ended up getting stuck inside a chandelier that fell in the middle of all the chaos the gala turned into. Judy, on the other hand, managed to chase Gary through a sequence of scenes that could take anyone's breath away, until she realized the snake was apparently someone innocent who simply wasn't being understood. That's what makes Judy so great, because in the world of Zootopia, most officers wouldn't even bother listening to Gary and would just try to take him down as fast as possible. But she knows things aren't always what they seem and gave him the chance to speak. It was also nice that Gary didn't act unnecessarily evil, considering how many movies have characters who are mistaken for villains because, besides doing suspicious things, they also behave in an overly villainous way just to make the audience believe they're the bad guy. Nick versus Gary. This fight we're talking about isn't exactly a fight. It's one of the most frustrating moments in the entire Zootopia saga, when Gary is just about to explain to Judy why he's doing all of this, only for Nick to suddenly show up and smack the snake on the head with a frying pan. At that moment, it's hard to know whether you want to laugh because it breaks all expectations, or punch Nick in the face for being such a buzzkill. But we can't even blame him. He thought Gary was a criminal and saw the perfect opportunity to hit him off guard, thinking it would save the Lynx Gary had kidnapped and also help Judy. Come on, who hasn't tried to help and ended up making everything worse? But that's how it is, right? If you can't help, at least get in the way. What matters is participating. I mean, it's definitely better for all of us if nobody actually follows that advice. If you like this video, there are 2 more ready on the screen. Just click and keep watching with us. Thanks, and see you soon.